welcome back to the Lily Bean channel. Today I'm going to make some really cute Easter dioramas featuring some of my stickers and my Wee Beasties. These are really easy to do and super fun. You could do it for any season, Easter, Halloween, Christmas, that kind of thing. So I've dug through my stash of stuff in the house. I found some stickers from my Easter collection, I found some scrapbooking paper, and then I went down to my local hardware shop where they have these really cute little cardboard boxes that make very sweet dioramas. So I went down intending only to get the boxes, but ended up looking out with quite a few plants as well. So the boxes that I got have a little bit of an overhang, and while I don't normally mind that, for this project I wanted to trim it down quite a bit, so I'm just trimming them down a little bit. One of the boxes I'm keeping a little bit of an overhang, and then once I've cut them all down, I'm going to grab my paint. You could use spray paint, but it was a really wet cold day yesterday, so I decided just to use my the paint that I had in my stash. This is a Payne's grey colour, so it's quite dark. Dark blue grey colour. It's not really black, but I like the effect that it gives, and I like having the dark surrounds in my dioramas because I feel it makes everything else stand out a little bit more. Once I've painted the inside and the outside of the box, I'm going to make a background for the actual box using the same colour, because the boxes themselves just, I guess, industrial type boxes. They're not boxes that you'd buy from a craft shop or give a gift in or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a background. I'm going to splatter it with some paint, so it's going to be like a night sky type background. So here I am just using the excess paint that I had left over and just really roughly painting a background onto a piece of art paper that I will cut out once it's dried. I have a massive roll of corrugated cardboard hanging around the office. It's for wrapping up paintings or fragile items that customers buy from me, or even transporting things to markets and that kind of thing. So I have decided to do some birch trees, or the trunks of birch trees, because I quite like how they the colours, I like the simplicity of them. I like that they're not the traditional brown, I guess, of normal trees. So I've done 4 of these tree trunks. I'm just using a bit of sand coloured paint, and then I'll just get some grey paint that I've mixed up to just do a little bit of shadow. And once this is dried, I'll go over it with a black marker just to put in the extra details and that kind of thing. You could use textures or pencils or any other kind of material you've got lying around. It just happens that I have a trolley full of art supplies that that I can utilise at any minute. I remembered on my walk this morning that I had a whole stash of Easter stickers from last year before all the markets were cancelled, so I'm going to use some of these in my dioramas today. I'm actually just sticking them down on a piece of black card to give them a little bit more rigidity, and I'm also going to leave I guess about half a centimetre of black surrounding the bottom of them, and I'll use that as a folded tab, and I'll use the tab to glue the stickers to the base of my dioramas. So once I've cut out all my stickers, I'm going to move on to making some treetops. I wanted to use some scrapbooking paper that I had lying around the house. I have stacks of it left over from when I started my creative journey, and I wanted some colours that would be bright and colourful, and I ended up selecting a brown colour because that's how my colour palette, I guess, what colours resonate with me. So I'm doing just a really quick outline of a stylized treetop. I'll cut these out. I don't think I end up using all of them, but I just have them floating around, and I'll use them in art journaling projects later on and that kind of thing. But I just thought they'd make a really pretty pop of colour. Easter for me is all about pastels and, I guess, pops of colour. For us in Australia, we're heading into autumn, which is my one of my favorite times of year. All the colors in the trees, the reds and the oranges and the browns really spark off a huge amount of creativity and creative thoughts for me. I'm just cutting out I guess a border piece, so this is going to go around the outside of one of my dioramas to give it I guess a frame, but you'll see it in the final piece. How it turns out. And these boxes, because they are industrial, they aren't actually square or rectangular in any way, so that does make it a bit tricky if you're going to use these. If I was using boxes that I'd gotten from a present or something like that, I think, and they'd be more rectangular, that would make it a bit easier. This is just some craft paper that I have floating around. Again, cutting out some tree shapes. I'm just going to stick it to some card to give it a bit more rigidity. When it comes to putting it all together, I really like having options, so I will cut out a few more pieces than I actually need, and then I can play with it at the final stages, which I really love doing. Again, like I said earlier, I'm getting out my black pen, putting in some markings for the birch trees, and then I'll cut these out as well. So I'm going to do one of my all-time favourite things in the world to do, which is to splatter some paint around like some stars. So I'm using some gesso, and I've watered it down with some water from my water bucket, and using a paintbrush just to splatter some paint around. I'm going to put that aside to dry, and now I want to create a moon. At Easter time, there is always that big gorgeous yellow moon hanging low in the sky, so I want to create something similar to that. I'm just using some washi tape to trace a round shape. I'm going to use sand and gold to create that sort of yellowy moon, and of course the moon also has the little bunny in it, so I'm using some of my leftover Payne's grey just to put a rabbit shape in there as well. I'm also going to paint the excess paint onto a piece of scrap paper, again in a moon shape, because moon symbols are quite prominent in a lot of my journal work. So I'll use that later on in a journal piece, cut it out and put it in. So I hate wasting paint. I feel like a Scrooge, but it is expensive, so I like to use paint as much as I possibly can, including all the scraps, and I'll often do prep work on journal pages with leftover paints as well. I really love how this little moon turned out. I love how the little bunny is just sort of sitting there up to the side. It's not defined or anything, it's just really pretty. So now I have to do a task that I hate, which is cutting out the background for my dioramas. And I don't hate it for any other reason except that I am absolutely and utterly crap at cutting and measuring and all those kind of things. Luckily, my grandfather, who was a carpenter, always said, measure twice, cut once. And in my head, I just keep saying that over and over again. And luckily I did, because when I measured this particular one twice, I realised that I'd actually had a different measurement in my head, and I would have cut it far too short. So I glued the backgrounds in just with a glue stick. This is a box that I've gotten, a bamboo box that I got from Kmart, which I think would look really good as well. So I'm just using these sticky mounts that I had left over from scrapbooking. They're the double-sided, I guess, small tape things, and I've stuck down the birch trees, and now I'm going to stick in my moon, put it in the center there. And for this particular diorama, I realised that I had cut the birch trees a little bit too short. So I'm just cutting out a piece of scrapbooking paper into I guess, grass shape, lots of pointy edges and that kind of thing. And I'm going to stick that at the bottom to hide my little mistake. Unfortunately, I didn't realise at the time of recording that my phone storage was full, so I've missed out on recording the second diorama for you, but I'll talk to you about it in a minute. This is just some Easter decorations that I've picked up from the $2 shop, and I thought they'd be super cute to give a pop of colour to my diorama. So I'm just cutting them down a little bit, and then I'm going to use the sticky mounts to stick the two big ones to the back. I'm also trimming off the ribbons because I just found them too big for the actual size of the diorama. I like to work in odd numbers, so I often group things in 3s or 5s or that kind of thing. I find it I guess, more visually appealing to me, but I know there are people who prefer to work on odds, so you can do whatever you like. I mean, these are your dioramas, so feel free to put your stamp on it. This one, because I'm grouping them together this way, I couldn't use the sticky mount, so I'm actually putting a hole in the bottom of my diorama to poke the stick through, and I'm just going to use some blue tack to secure it to the mount, which should stand up. I mean, they're not being moved around anywhere, they're just actually just sitting on my mantelpiece at the end of it, so that should work fine. And I like the way that they're all sort of grouped together in that little cluster, and they look like really lovely big beautiful flowers. So we're just going to pull them all together and just see sort of how they're going to sit on the mantelpiece, where they sit side by side. I like the idea of grouping them together like this. You can see there in the second diorama that I've used, again, the trunks from the birch trees that I cut out, and I guess the tops of the trees that I cut out from scrapbooking paper. I've used the stickers and I folded the tabs over and I've glued those tabs to the ground. I like that this is quite simple, and so my kids have polymer clay and we were playing with them, and I was just making some moon shapes. I was thinking of making a little set of moon charms, I guess, and I just had them in the studio, and I thought actually making a little moon ornament as well would be quite cute. So I've used some wire that I had floating around, and I have put that through the hole that I made in the clay before I baked it, and I have stuck that through the roof of the diorama. But you could just cut out paper or stickers or cardboard or that kind of thing if you wanted to put a moon in it like that. My artwork is heavily influenced by Play School and the useful box and having things floating around the house and repurposing them. So I like using things that I have floating around, and it was just that I had my kids were playing with polymer clay and I was playing with it too, and I decided to utilise that moon in my diorama. So I was going to put these in our front entranceway underneath the wall light that we have, that we keep on pretty much all the time, because it is quite a darkish area, and especially today because it is so rainy, and I really love how they've turned out. The wall light will spotlight them, so if I didn't have a wall light there, I would have used some fairy lights or something like that. I had a little another little Easter ornament floating around from last year, so I decided to put that up there as well. And I've used my Wee Beasties to fill out the rest of the dioramas. I have quite a collection of Easter Wee Beasties, all decorated with little bunny ears and that kind of thing. And I think they look really great in dioramas. I think they're such cute, I guess, dust collectors, and everyone asks me, what can you use them for? And I know people use them as guardians, and I know other people use them in shelves, displays on shelves and all that kind of stuff. But I really like making little scenes that they sort of sit in and just bring something magical and whimsical to our house. You may have seen my Christmas Wee Beastie one. That was a huge diorama that we pull out at Christmas time, and I just love it. And so these are my Easter Wee Beasties and my Easter diorama, and I hope you've really enjoyed watching me make it. And if you decide or are inspired to make yourself an Easter diorama, I really love it if you share pictures with me. You can contact me via messenger on this channel or on my Facebook or through my website, www.lilybedesign.com, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.